Okay. Yes, I know I'm now acting as Tad Williams. Hi. Good evening, or good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night, wherever you may happen to be. I'm Tad. I will be here for approximately the next hour. I will be reading. God, I'm looking at my own reflection here. That's terrifying. There's a current film that was just out. Actually, I think it's just gone to streaming, loosely based on one of my favorite Thomas Pynchon novels, which is called Vineland. I haven't seen the movie yet. Deb and I want to see it, though. Anyway, but this movie, One Battle After Another, is what it's called. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm currently having my own adventure series, and I'm calling it One Head Cold After Another. It's nothing major. It's more like the equivalent of an allergy thing. But that's unfortunately, I wish that the red eyes, the slightly stuffy nose, was something that I could lay down to extreme and trendy drug abuse or something like that. But it is nothing but germs. But anyway, not to worry. I'm not worrying about it anyway. Good to see you all. Nice to be here with you. I apologize right off the top for whatever happened last time. We were reading, or I was reading, The Snow Queen, which I'm going to finish tonight. And I guess the broadcast just stopped for some reason. I have no idea. These things, we haven't been having problems with this lately, so I don't know what caused that. But anyway, I didn't realize, as often happens, because I'm looking at the thing I'm reading, and so I must have read on for at least another half an hour, just by myself, not realizing the thing was turned off. I wondered why the cats were looking at me with that sort of pitying gaze. You know, the poor fool. He thinks he's talking to people out there. Oh, these humans. Anyway, so that's the first thing, is I'm going to read the last two sections, because I think it's like a story in 7 chapters, and apparently, according to everybody, I was about to start chapter 6 when the lights went out, as it were, when the thing just suddenly froze up. And like I said, I didn't know, so I just kept reading for another half an hour like an idiot. I suppose I should check from time to time to see if I'm still connected. Anyway, so that's that, and I'm going to read that, and then if we have some time left over, I'll see what else I have to talk about or to read. Any other things? So, news. What was I going to say? Well, first of all, I'll show you my shirt. It was a gift from my friend Rick, and I don't know if you can see it properly, but this was the logo for our old band, and we made t-shirts and posters and stuff. And yes, I'm afraid I did draw that. That was like back in about 1974 or so. So quite a while in the past. Anyway, so my friend Rick sent me a t-shirt, so I am wearing it as my official thank you to him. So other than that, we are past the most horrifying parts of the year, as far as I'm concerned, which are the holidays in December. Mostly because we have so many birthdays in December, and plus Christmas, and then Thanksgiving just before it, and it's just a nonstop whirl of obligation. And as you may have guessed, now that you've known me for a while, I like a quiet life. I like a quiet life. I like time to work. I like time to think. I like time to sit around staring at nothing, figuring out what I'm doing. So the holidays, although I still have a sentimental attachment, they're not my favorite time of the year, just because there are so many obligations. And I really prize my alone time, my peace to think time. But we have now done most of that now, and it was all nice as one would hope. I had a family Christmas and all that kind of stuff, and it was great seeing everybody, and that, no complaints. But I am also glad to be back to the point where I have time to work. I spent the day today working, doing editing on Splintered Sun, and working on Splintered Sun maps, which I am not going to be doing the final version of. The very, very kind and talented Isaac Stewart is going to be doing those again, just as he did for the whole last series of books. But before he can do those, I have to get him my preparatory material, and that includes lots of maps that I have to draw, although albeit in not such great detail and at a similar skill level to what Isaac is employing. And then, but before I can do that, see, everything, it's modern life, but it's been around forever. Before I can do that, I have to do other things. And one of those things is I actually have to lock down the geography, because there are points here, I will admit it, my hand to God, I admit it, there are times when I am writing a first draft where I don't sit down and calculate every distance out to the smallest degree. I do not figure out every single thing. I go by, okay, that feels like that's probably close enough or whatever. But when it's time to make maps and such, as my dear friend Ron Hyde, who has been involved in these projects for years now, as I have done many times to frustrate Ron, then I have to reconcile afterwards to whatever I've done so that it can actually be put into some kind of concrete form as a map. So you can't really see it, but I've got a table over to this side that is absolutely covered with various printed copies of various older maps from the books, and the new ones, and my temporary ones that I've done, and various other things. So I am in the process of doing that as well while I'm editing, because I'm hoping to have the whole project done by the end of the month, and that includes finishing editing the book, but I also want to get the map stuff out before then. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. My beautiful and talented wife, Deborah, is working on her stuff as always. She's got fabric art everywhere, and she's in the middle of many projects. Our one child, who is with us at the moment, no longer a child, obviously, and a young adult person, but she's staying with us, and that's nice. Always good to see her. The dogs and cats, everybody's well. Dogs, as I mentioned last time, getting along pretty well. They're still not best buddies or anything, but they definitely coexist in the same space, and there's moments of friction, but by and large, compared to what we were dealing with a year ago when we first brought Lemon into the household, and it's shocking to realize it's been a year since then. A year ago, I had fenced off half the living room with all kinds of impediments to keep the dogs apart, and we could never let, we had Lemon on leashes all the time to make sure that we knew where she was, and because she and Johnny were not getting along, and there was fighting and all this stuff. So where we have come to now is glorious, and we have no complaints. As I said, they're still not buddies, but they're, they when one of them goes out and comes in, the other one goes up and sniffs to make sure everything is okay, and this is not some imposter or robot dog trying to infiltrate the household, or whatever the reason is, that they always feel compelled to go and sniff after a brief outward and inward journey. So everything here basically fine, no complaints, no problems, just trying to work. And that's about the name of that tune. So I haven't even dealt with much of anything else since Christmas except work. And yeah, that's about it, I think. So I have now brought you up to date on Life Shea Beale Williams, which is never overly exciting, and we like it that way. Well, unless dogs are fighting or something, or we are repelling pirates, because that's a big problem in the Santa Cruz Mountains, are cabin pirates that try to take over your house. But other than those two issues, we're all doing very well. Okay, so now let me just check in and see who all has shown up and needs to be said hello to. So let me do this first. Okay, I am not reading the comments yet. I am just going by who has made comments, so I am saying hello. So hello, there's Melissa Fuller. Hello, Melissa. There's Emily. Emily Bell. Hello, hello. Trish Laubacker. Hello, Trish. Good to have you. Good evening. Isaac Tim. Hello again, Isaac. You were just here last night. And there's Mark Craigbaum, who was also just here last night. God, you people are kind. Or bored. I don't know which. Susan Chamblin. Hello, Susan. Tracy McClatchy. Claudia War. Tim Speckens. Hello, Tim. Barb Ann, Margaret Messineo, Jerry, Mr. Unangst. I am so glad to see you here. Good man. Jeremy Ehrman. So we got Jerry and Jeremy back to back. Kelly Kenrick is here as well. Medardo Landon Mazadueñas, mi amigo Medardo. Un placer de verte. Dustin Alford, that's a new name, I think, and Christy Sanders. Hello, Dustin. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you. There's the camera. Hello. Good to have you all. And okay, Emily is still thinking of the table of. It doesn't look like anything, Emily. That's the problem. It just looks like a mess. Here, I'll show you. See, it's just a mess of maps and books and pencils and stuff. Sorry, I can't hold this very steady. It doesn't look very interesting, but it is covered with what I have been doing for the past 2 days. Numerous sketches and things like that. Anyway, okay, so what I am going to do is I am going to do my best to keep the broadcast going, unlike last time, and I am going to read you the last bits of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. Wacky story. Wacky story. I think the only version I had read was a slightly expurgated version when I was younger, or a retelling or something like that, because I don't remember the story and how wacky it is. And there really is no better word I can find. I mean, it's just a very strange story that is full of odd little details and things that don't quite go where you think they're going to go. Anyway, so the last thing. All right, so basically, for those who weren't here before, there were two children. They lived across the road from each other, but because their houses were so tall and in the medieval way, they kind of tilt toward each other because every level, every story is a little closer to the one across the street so that things can be dropped straight down from there. So these two children, Gerda and Kay is the boy, K-A-Y, and Gerda, were best of buddies, best friends, loved each other dearly like brother and sister. But one day, an icy particle of a cursed mirror. Okay, and it's explained, but that's all you ever hear about is a demon cursed a mirror. The mirror broke. Pieces flew everywhere and caused all kinds of problems. And one piece broke into two more pieces, and a piece flew into Kay's heart and another piece into his eye. And the first symptom was that because of the piece in his eye, everything he saw looked to him kind of stupid and not very interesting or even ugly. But he liked things that were bad and evil. And because of the other piece in his heart, he didn't mind the fact that he'd changed like this. And in fact, he was happy to be that way. Anyway, so many other things began to happen. The boy became more and more unpleasant and didn't like the other people in the town anymore and didn't even care much for Gerda, excuse me. And then one day he was out with his sled and wound up meeting a woman who Narnia readers will recognize in the sense that the same kind of character showed up in the Narnia books, although obviously Hans Christian Andersen predated C.S. Lewis. Since Hans Christian Andersen wrote this story back in the 1840s or 50s or something. But so she, the Snow Queen, the titular Snow Queen, invited Kay into her sled and took him away with her. So Gerda, when she found out that Kay was gone, was very, very sad and eventually was down at the river thinking he might have fallen in, and she was looking for him, and a pretty little boat floated by. She got into it and then went off down the stream in the boat, was swept along in search of Kay, having all kinds of different adventures, including, talking flowers and a prince and princess and a talking crow who she became friends with more or less, and various other things. And then in the meanwhile, Kay was taken up to the far north and had to live with the Snow Queen and had begun to lose his enchantment with that situation. While Gerda is still trying to find him, Gerda winds up falling in with a group of robbers, and fortunately for Gerda, the little robber girl, so called, the young woman who is one of the robbers, because her mother was one of the robbers, little robber girl who is a tough little character who always has a knife. Little robber girl decided she liked Gerda and helped Gerda to escape and put Gerda on a magic reindeer, well, magic because it talked, that wanted to go back to Lapland, where it was from. And so that's what was going on. Lapland, by the way, this part of Lapland is in the northern part of Finland, if you are not geographically up on that stuff. Anyway, so Gerda is still searching for Kay, but she is being taken up to where the Snow Queen is on the back of the reindeer. And they go for days and days and nights, riding through the cold, etc., etc. And that's where apparently the lights went out or the thing froze or whatever. So I'm going to start reading from there. So we are on section 6, or what they say, 6th story of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen, and this is The Lapland Woman and the Finland Woman. They, meaning Gerda and the reindeer, they stopped at a little hut. It was very mean looking. The roof sloped down nearly to the ground, and the door was so low that the family had to creep in on their hands and knees when they went in and out. There was no one at home but an old Lapland woman who was cooking fish by the light of a train oil lamp. The reindeer told her all about Gerda's story, after having first told his own, which seemed to him the most important. But Gerda was so pinched with the cold that she couldn't speak. "Oh, you poor things," said the Lapland woman. "You have a long way to go yet. You must travel more than 100 miles farther, to Finland. The Snow Queen lives there now, and she burns Bengal lights every evening. I will write a few words on a dried stockfish, for I have no paper, and you can take it from me to the Finland woman who lives there. She can give you better information than I can." So, when Gerda was warmed and had taken something to eat and drink, the woman wrote a few words on the dried fish and told Gerda to take great care of it. Then she tied her again on the reindeer, and he set off at full speed. Flash! Flash went the beautiful blue northern lights in the air the whole night long. And at length they reached Finland, and knocked at the chimney of the Finland woman's hut, for it had no door above the ground. They crept in, but it was so terribly hot inside that the woman wore scarcely any clothes. She was small and very dirty looking. She loosened little Gerda's dress and took off the fur boots and the mittens, or Gerda would have been unable to bear the heat. And then she placed a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the dried fish. After she had read it 3 times, she knew it by heart. So she popped the fish into the soup saucepan, as she knew it was good to eat, and she never wasted anything. The reindeer told his own story first, and then little Gerda's, and the Finlander twinkled with her clever eyes, but she said nothing. "You are so clever," said the reindeer. "I know you can tie all the winds of the world with a piece of twine. If a sailor unties one knot, he has a fair wind. When he unties the second, it blows hard. But if the third and fourth are loosened, then comes a storm which will root up whole forests. Cannot you give this little maiden something which will make her as strong as 12 men to overcome the Snow Queen?" "The power of 12 men," said the Finland woman. "That would be of very little use." But she went to a shelf and took down and unrolled a large skin, on which were inscribed wonderful characters, and she read till the perspiration ran down from her forehead. But the reindeer begged so hard for little Gerda, and Gerda looked at the Finland woman with such beseeching, tearful eyes, that her own eyes began to twinkle again. So she drew the reindeer into a corner and whispered to him while she laid a fresh piece of ice on his head. "Little Kay is really with the Snow Queen, But he finds everything there so much to his taste and his liking that he believes it is the finest place in the world. But this is because he has a piece of broken glass in his heart and a little piece of glass in his eye. These must be taken out, or he will never be a human being again, and the Snow Queen will retain her power over him. But can you not give little Gerda something to help her to conquer this power? I can give her no greater power than she has already, said the woman. Don't you see how strong that is? How men and animals are obliged to serve her, and how well she has got through the world, barefooted as she is. She cannot receive any power from me greater than she now has, which consists in her own purity and innocence of heart. If she cannot herself obtain access to the Snow Queen, and remove the glass fragments from little Kay, we can do nothing to help her. 2 miles from here, the Snow Queen's garden begins. You can carry the little girl so far and set her down by the large bush which stands in the snow covered with red berries. Do not stay gossiping, but come back here as quickly as you can. Then the Finland woman lifted little Gerda upon the reindeer, and he ran away with her as quickly as he could. Oh, I have forgotten my boots and my mittens, cried little Gerda as soon as she felt the cutting cold, but the reindeer dared not stop, so he ran on till he reached the bush with the red berries. Here he set Gerda down, and he kissed her, and the great bright tears trickled over the animal's cheeks. Then he left her and ran back as fast as he could. There stood poor Gerda, without shoes, without gloves, in the midst of cold, dreary, ice-bound Finland. She ran forwards as quickly as she could. Then a whole regiment of snowflakes came round her. They did not, however, fall from the sky, which was quite clear and glittering with the northern lights. These snowflakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came to her, the larger they appeared. Gerda remembered how large and beautiful they looked through the burning glass. But these were really larger and much more terrible, for they were alive and were the guards of the Snow Queen, and had the strangest shapes. Some were like great porcupines, others like twisted serpents with their heads stretching out, and some few were like fat little bears with their hair bristled. But all were dazzlingly white, and all were living snowflakes. Then little Gerda repeated the Lord's Prayer, and the cold was so great that she could see her own breath come out of her mouth like steam as she uttered the words. The steam appeared to increase as she continued her prayer, till it took the shape of little angels who grew larger the moment they touched the earth. They all wore helmets on their heads and carried spears and shields. Their number continued to increase more and more, and by the time Gerda had finished her prayers, a whole legion stood round her. They thrust their spears into the terrible snowflakes, so that they shivered into 100 pieces, and little Gerda could go forward with courage and safety. The angels stroked her hands and feet, so that she felt the cold less, and she hastened on to the Snow Queen's castle. But now we must see what Kay is doing. In truth, he thought not of little Gerda, and never supposed she could be standing in front of the palace. 7th story of the Palace of the Snow Queen and what happened there at last. The walls of the palace were formed of drifted snow, and the windows and doors of the cutting winds. There were more than 100 rooms in it, all as if they had been formed with snow blown together. The largest of them extended for several miles. They were all lighted up by the vivid light of the aurora, and they were so large and empty, so icy cold and glittering. There were no amusements here, not even a little bear's ball for the young lady foxes. Empty, vast, and cold were the halls of the Snow Queen. The flickering flame of northern lights could be plainly seen, whether they rose high or low in the heavens, from every part of the castle. In the midst of its empty, endless hall of snow was a frozen lake, broken on its surface into 1,000 forms. Each piece resembled another, from being in itself perfect as a work of art, and in the center of this lake sat the Snow Queen when she was at home. She called the lake the Mirror of Reason and said that it was the best and indeed the only one in the world. Little Kay was quite blue with cold, indeed almost black, but he did not feel it, for the Snow Queen had kissed away the icy shiverings, and his heart was already a lump of ice. He dragged some sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro and placed them together in all kinds of positions, as if he wished to make something out of them, just as we try to form various figures with little tablets of wood, which we call a Chinese puzzle. Kay's fingers were very artistic. It was the icy game of reason at which he played, and in his eyes the figures were very remarkable and of the highest importance. This opinion was owing to the piece of glass still sticking in his eye. He composed many complete figures, forming different words, but there was one word he could never manage to form, although he wished it very much. It was the word eternity. The Snow Queen had said to him, "When you can find out this, you shall be your own master, and I will give you the whole world and a new pair of skates." But he could not accomplish it. "Now, I must hasten away to warmer countries," said the Snow Queen. "I will go and look into the black craters of the tops of the burning mountains, Etna and Vesuvius, as they are called. I shall make them look white, which will be good for them, and for the lemons and the grapes." And away flew the Snow Queen, leaving little Kay quite alone in the great hall, which was so many miles in length. So he sat and looked at his pieces of ice, and was thinking so deeply and sat so still that anyone might have supposed he was frozen. Just at this moment it happened that little Gerda came through the great door of the castle. Cutting winds were raging around her, but she offered up a prayer, and the winds sank down as if they were going to sleep. And she went on till she came to the large empty hall and caught sight of Kay. She knew him directly. She flew to him and threw her arms around his neck and held him fast while she exclaimed, "Kay! Dear little Kay, I have found you at last." But he sat quite still, stiff and cold. Then little Gerda wept hot tears, which fell on his breast and penetrated into his heart and thawed the lump of ice and washed away the little piece of glass which had stuck there. Then he looked at her, and she sang, "Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see." Then Kay burst into tears, and he wept so that the splinter of glass swam out of his eye. Then he recognized Gerda and said joyfully, "Gerda, dear little Gerda, where have you been all this time? And where have I been?" And he looked all around him and said, "How cold it is, and how large and empty it all looks." And he clung to Gerda, and she laughed and wept for joy. It was so pleasing to see them that the pieces of ice even danced about, and when they were tired and went to lie down, they formed themselves into the letters of the word which the Snow Queen had said he must find out before he could be his own master and have the whole world and a new pair of skates. Then Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they became blooming, and she kissed his eyes, and they shone like her own. She kissed his hands and feet, and then he became quite healthy and cheerful. The Snow Queen might come home now when she pleased, for there stood his certainty of freedom in the word she wanted, written in shining letters of ice. Then they took each other by the hand and went forth from the great palace of ice. They spoke of the grandmother. This is back home they're talking about. They spoke of the grandmother and of the roses on the roof. And as they went on, the winds were at rest, and the sun burst forth. When they arrived at the bush with red berries, there stood the reindeer waiting for them, and he had brought another young reindeer with him, whose udders were full, and the children drank her warm milk and kissed her on the mouth. Then they carried Kay and Gerda first to the Finland woman, where they warmed themselves thoroughly in the hot room, and she gave them directions about their journey home. Next they went to the Lapland woman, who made some new clothes for them and put their sleighs in order. Both the reindeer ran by their side and followed them as far as the boundaries of the country, where the first green leaves were budding. And here they took leave of the two reindeer and the Lapland woman, and all said farewell. Then the birds began to twitter, and the forest, too, was full of green young leaves, and out of it came a beautiful horse, which Gerda remembered, for it was the one which had drawn the golden coach. A young girl was riding upon it, with a shining red cap on her head and pistols in her belt. It was the little robber maiden, who had got tired of staying at home. She was going first to the north, and if that did not suit her, she meant to try some other part of the world. She knew Gerda directly, and Gerda remembered her. It was a joyful meeting. "You're a fine fellow to go gadding about in this way," said she to little Kay. "I should like to know whether you deserve that anyone should go to the end of the world to find you." But Gerda patted her cheeks and asked after the prince and princess. "They are gone to foreign countries," said the robber girl. "And the crow?" asked Gerda. "Oh, the crow is dead," she replied. "His tame sweetheart is now a widow and wears a bit of black worsted around her leg. She mourns very pitifully, but it is all stuff. But now tell me how you managed to get him back." Then Gerda and Kay told her all about it. "Snip, snap, snare, it's all right at last," said the robber girl. Then she took both their hands and promised that if ever she should pass through the town, she would call and pay them a visit. And then she rode away into the wide world. But Gerda and Kay went hand in hand toward home, and as they advanced, spring appeared more lovely with its green verdure and its beautiful flowers. Very soon they recognized the large town where they lived, and the tall steeples of the churches, in which the sweet bells were ringing a merry peal as they entered it, and found their way to the grandmother's door. They went upstairs into the little room, where all looked just as it used to do. The old clock was going tick-tock, and the hands pointed to the time of day. But as they passed through the door into the room, they perceived that they were both grown up and had become a man and woman. The roses out on the roof were in full bloom and peeped in at the window, and there stood the little chairs on which they had sat when children. And Kay and Gerda seated themselves each on their own chair and held each other by the hand, while the cold, empty grandeur of the Snow Queen's palace vanished from their memories like a painful dream. The grandmother sat in God's bright sunshine, and she read aloud from the Bible. "Except ye become as little children, ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of God." And Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and all at once understood the words of the old song. "Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see." And they both sat there, grown up, yet children at heart. And it was summer, warm, beautiful summer. And that is the end of the Snow Queen. So, I've got, 25 minutes left. I kind of feel like there's a lot to talk about with the Snow Queen because it is a crazy-ass story. As you may have noticed, where, like, the Crow, who is, like, a major character earlier on, they're just informed Crow's dead. His widow, who we also met briefly, although they weren't married or anything, but they were boyfriend and girlfriend, I guess, or something. Anyway, so we meet we hear about the Crow from the little robber girl. She says, "Oh, he's dead," and his partner's mourning him, but it's nonsense. That's what stuff means in that circumstance. Anyway, it's a crazy ass story, and I mean, I think I could devote like half of a broadcast or more just talking about it. But rather than do all that now and all the different things, I would like to give people there a chance, people listening a chance to respond with anything that they've thought about after hearing both parts of it. And instead, I think I'm going to read another story if we have time for it now. And that story is by Lucy Clifford. And let me just double check this. Where did it go? I need a new one of these things. Okay. So Lucy Clifford, who wrote this story that we're going to read, it lived from 1846 to 1929. So a bit later than Hans Christian Andersen, obviously. But anyway, so I've been saying that a lot. So this story is called The New Mother, and it's a very strange, odd story. And I think we have time to finish it. I may run a few minutes past the top. But this is a story by Lucy Clifford from her collection called Anyhow Stories, and it was written in the 19th century, and it's very interesting and odd. The New Mother by Lucy Clifford. The children were always called Blue Eyes and the Turkey. The elder one was like her dear father, who was far away at sea, for the father had the bluest of blue eyes, and so gradually his little girl came to be called after them. The younger one had once, while she was still almost a baby, cried bitterly because a turkey that lived near the cottage suddenly vanished in the middle of the winter, and to console her she had been called by its name. Now, the mother and Blue Eyes and the turkey and the baby all lived in a lonely cottage on the edge of the forest. It was a long way to the village, nearly a mile and a half, and the mother had to work hard and had not time to go often herself to see if there was a letter at the post office from the dear father. And so very often in the afternoon she used to send the two children. They were very proud of being able to go alone. When they came back tired with the long walk, there would be the mother waiting and watching for them, and the tea would be ready, and the baby crowing with delight. And if by any chance there was a letter from the sea, then they were happy indeed. The cottage room was so cozy. The walls were white as snow, inside as well as out. The baby's high chair stood in one corner, and in another there was a cupboard, in which the mother kept all manner of surprises. "Dear children," the mother said one afternoon late in the autumn, "it is very chilly for you to go to the village, but you must walk quickly. And who knows but what you may bring back a letter, saying that dear father is already on his way back to England. Don't be long," the mother said, as she always did before they started. Go the nearest way, and don't look at any strangers you meet, and be sure you do not talk with them." "No, mother," they answered, and then she kissed them and called them dear good children, and they joyfully started on their way. The village was gayer than usual, for there had been a fair the day before. "Oh, I do wish we had been here yesterday," Blue Eyes said as they went on to the grocer's, which was also the post office. The postmistress was very busy and just said, "No letter for you today." Then Blue Eyes and the turkey turned away to go home. They had left the village and walked some way, and then they noticed, resting against a pile of stones by the wayside, a strange, wild-looking girl who seemed very unhappy. So they thought they would ask her if they could do anything to help her, for they were kind children and sorry indeed for anyone in distress. The girl seemed to be about 15 years old. She was dressed in very ragged clothes. Round her shoulders there was an old brown shawl. She wore no bonnet. Her hair was coal black and hung down, uncombed and unfastened. She had something hidden under her shawl. On seeing them coming towards her, she carefully put it under her and sat upon it. Sorry, they misspelled there. She carefully put it under her and sat upon it. She sat watching the children approach and did not move or stir till they were within a yard of her. Then she wiped her eyes, just as if she had been crying bitterly, and looked up. The children stood still in front of her for a moment, staring at her. "Are you crying?" they asked shyly. "Perhaps you have lost yourself?" But the girl answered promptly, "Certainly not. Why, you have just found me. Besides, she added, I live in the village. The children were surprised at this, for they had never seen her before, and yet they thought they knew all the village folk by sight. Then the turkey, who had an inquiring mind, put a question. What are you sitting on? She asked. On a pear drum, the girl answered. What is a pear drum? They asked. I am surprised at your not knowing, the girl answered. Most people in good society have one. And then she pulled it out and showed it to them. It was a curious instrument, a good deal like a guitar in shape. It had 3 strings, but only 2 pegs by which to tune them. But the strangest thing about the pear drum was not the music it made, but a little square box attached to one side. Where did you get it? The children asked. I bought it, the girl answered. Didn't it cost a great deal of money? They asked. Yes, answered the girl, slowly nodding her head. It cost a great deal of money. I am very rich. You don't look rich, they said in as polite a voice as possible. Perhaps not, the girl answered cheerfully. At this the children gathered courage and ventured to remark, You look rather shabby. Indeed, said the girl in the voice of one who has heard a pleasant but surprising statement. A little shabbiness is very respectable, she added in a satisfied voice. I must really tell them this, she continued, and the children wondered what she meant. She opened the little box by the side of the pear drum and said, just as if she were speaking to someone who could hear her, They say I look rather shabby. It is quite lucky, isn't it? Why, you are not speaking to anyone, they said, more surprised than ever. Oh dear, yes, I am speaking to them both. Both? They said, wondering. Yes, I have here a little man dressed as a peasant and a little woman to match. I put them on the lid of the box, and when I play, they dance most beautifully. Let us see, do let us see, the children cried. Then the village girl looked at them doubtfully. Let you see, she said slowly. Well, I am not sure that I can. Tell me, are you good? Yes, yes, they answered eagerly. We are very good. Then it's quite impossible, she answered, and resolutely closed the lid of the box. They stared at her in astonishment. But we are good, they cried, thinking she must have misunderstood them. We are very good. Then can't you let us see the little man and woman? Oh, dear, no, the girl answered. I only show them to naughty children. And the worse the children, the better do the man and woman dance. She put the pear drum carefully under her ragged cloak and prepared to go on her way. I really could not have believed that you were good, she said reproachfully, as if they accused themselves of some great crime. Well, good day. Oh, but we will be naughty, they said in despair. I am afraid you couldn't, she answered, shaking her head. It requires a great deal of skill to be naughty well. And swiftly she walked away, while the children felt their eyes fill with tears and their hearts ache with disappointment. If we had only been naughty, they said, we should have seen them dance. Suppose, said the turkey, we try to be naughty today, perhaps she would let us see them tomorrow. But oh, said Blue Eyes, I don't know how to be naughty. No one ever taught me. The turkey thought for a few minutes in silence. I think I can be naughty if I try, she said. I'll try tonight. Oh, don't be naughty without me, her sister cried. It would be so unkind of you. You know I want to see the little woman and man just as much as you do. You are very unkind. And so, quarreling and crying, they reached their home. Now, when their mother saw them, she was greatly astonished, and fearing they were hurt, ran to meet them. Oh, my children! Oh, my dear, dear children, she said. What is the matter? But they did not dare tell their mother about the village girl and the little man and woman, so they answered, "Nothing is the matter," and cried all the more. "Poor children," the mother said to herself. "They are tired, and perhaps they are hungry. After tea they will be better." And she went back to the cottage and made the fire blaze, and she put the kettle on to boil and set the tea things on the table. Then she went to the little cupboard and took out some bread and cut it on the table and said in a loving voice, "Dear little children, come and have your tea. And see, there is the baby waking from her sleep. She will crow at us while we eat." But the children made no answer to the dear mother. They only stood still by the window and said nothing. "Come, children," the mother said again. "Come, Blue Eyes, and come, my turkey. Here is nice sweet bread for tea." Then suddenly she looked up and saw that the turkey's eyes were full of tears. "Turkey," she exclaimed, "my dear little turkey, what is the matter? Come to mother, my sweet." And putting the baby down, she held out her arms, and the turkey ran swiftly into them. "Oh, mother," she sobbed, "oh, dear mother, I do so want to be naughty. I do so want to be very, very naughty." And then Blue Eyes left her chair also, and rubbing her face against her mother's shoulder, cried sadly, "And so do I, mother. Oh, I'd give anything to be very, very naughty." "But my dear children," said the mother in astonishment, "why do you want to be naughty?" "Because we do. Oh, what shall we do?" they cried together. "I should be very angry if you were naughty, but you could not be, for you love me," the mother answered. "Why couldn't we?" they asked. Then the mother thought a while before she answered, and she seemed to be speaking rather to herself than to them. "Because if one loves well," she said gently, "one's love is stronger than all the bad feelings in one and conquers them." "We don't know what you mean," they cried, "and we do love you, but we want to be naughty." "Then I should know you did not love me," the mother said. "If we were very, very, very naughty and wouldn't be good, what then?" "Then," said the mother sadly, and while she spoke her eyes filled with tears and a sob almost choked her, "then," she said, "I should have to go away and leave you, and to send home a new mother with glass eyes and a wooden tail." Chapter 2. "Good day," said the village girl when she saw Blue Eyes and the turkey approach. She was again sitting by the heap of stones, and under her shawl the pear drum was hidden. "Are the little man and woman there?" the children asked. "Yes, thank you for inquiring after them," the girl answered. "They are both here and quite well. The little woman has heard a secret. She tells it while she dances." "Oh, do let us see," they entreated. "Quite impossible, I assure you," the girl answered promptly. "You see, you are good." "Oh," said Blue Eyes sadly, "but mother says if we are naughty she will go away and send home a new mother with glass eyes and a wooden tail." "Indeed," said the girl, still speaking in the same unconcerned voice, "that is what they all say. They all threaten that kind of thing. Of course, there really are no mothers with glass eyes and wooden tails. They would be much too expensive to make." And the common sense of this remark the children saw at once. "We think you might let us see the little man and woman dance." "The kind of thing you would think," remarked the village girl. "But will you, if we are naughty?" they asked in despair. "I fear you could not be naughty. That is, really, even if you tried," she said scornfully. "But if we are very naughty tonight, will you let us see them tomorrow?" "Questions asked today are always best answered tomorrow," the girl said blithely. "I must really go and play a little to myself." For a few minutes the children stood looking after her. Then they broke down and cried. The turkey was the first to wipe away her tears. "Let us go home and be very naughty," she said. "Then perhaps she will let us see them tomorrow." And that afternoon the dear mother was sorely distressed, for instead of sitting at their tea as usual with smiling happy faces, they broke their mugs and threw their bread and butter on the floor. And when the mother told them to do one thing, they carefully did another, and only stamped their feet with rage when she told them to go upstairs until they were good. "Do you remember what I told you I should do if you were very, very naughty?" she asked sadly. "Yes, but we know it isn't true," they cried. "There is no mother with a wooden tail and glass eyes, and if there were, we should just stick pins into her and send her away. But there is none." Then the mother became really angry and sent them off to bed, but instead of crying and being sorry at her anger, they laughed for joy and sat up and sang merry songs at the top of their voices. The next morning, quite early, without asking leave from the mother, the children got up and ran off as fast as they could to look for the village girl. She was sitting, as usual, by the heap of stones with the pear drum under her shawl. "Now please show us the little man and woman," they cried, "and let us hear the pear drum. We were very naughty last night." But the girl kept the pear drum carefully hidden. "So you say," she answered. "You were not half naughty enough. As I remarked before, it requires a great deal of skill to be naughty well. But we broke our mugs. We threw our bread and butter on the floor. We did everything we could to be tiresome." "Mere trifles," answered the village girl scornfully. "Did you throw cold water on the fire? Did you break the clock? Did you pull all the tins down from the walls and throw them on the floor?" "No," exclaimed the children, aghast. "We did not do that." "I thought not," the girl answered. "So many people mistake a little noise and foolishness for real naughtiness." And before they could say another word, she had vanished. "We'll be much worse," the children cried in despair. "We'll go and do all the things she says." And then they went home and did all these things. And when the mother saw all that they had done, she did not scold them as she had the day before, but she just broke down and cried and said sadly, "Unless you are good tomorrow, my poor Blue Eyes and Turkey, I shall indeed have to go away and come back no more, and the new mother I told you of will come to you." They did not believe her, yet their hearts ached when they saw how unhappy she looked, and they thought within themselves that when once they had seen the little man and woman dance, they would be good to the dear mother forever afterwards. The next morning, before the birds were stirring, the children crept out of the cottage and ran across the fields. They found the village girl sitting by the heap of stones, just as if it were her natural home. "We have been very naughty," they cried. "We have done all the things you told us. Now will you show us the little man and woman?" The girl looked at them curiously. "You seem really excited, quite excited," she said in her usual voice. "You should be calm." "We have done all the things you told us," the children cried again, "and we do so long to hear the secret. We have been so very naughty, and Mother says she will go away today and send home a new mother if we are not good." "Indeed," said the girl. "Well, let me see. When did your mother say she would go?" "But if she goes, what shall we do?" they cried in despair. We don't want her to go. We love her very much." "You had better go back and be good. You are really not clever enough to be anything else, and the little woman's secret is very important. She never tells it for make-believe naughtiness." "But we did all the things you told us," the children cried. "You didn't throw the looking-glass out of the window or stand the baby on its head?" "No, we didn't do that," the children gasped. "I thought not," the girl said triumphantly. "Well, good day. I shall not be here tomorrow." "Oh, but don't go away," they cried. "Do let us see them just once." "Well, I shall go past your cottage at 11 o'clock this morning," the girl said. Perhaps I shall play the pear drum as I go by." "And will you show us the man and woman?" they asked. "Quite impossible, unless you have really deserved it. Make-believe naughtiness is only spoilt goodness. Now, if you break the looking-glass and do the things that are desired—" "Oh, we will," they cried. "We will be very naughty till we hear you coming. Then again the children went home and were naughty. Oh, so very, very naughty that the dear mother's heart ached and her eyes filled with tears, and at last she went upstairs and slowly put on her best gown and her new sunbonnet, and she dressed the baby all in its Sunday clothes. And then she came down and stood before Blue Eyes and the turkey, and just as she did, the turkey threw the looking-glass out the window, and it fell with a loud crash upon the ground. "Goodbye, my children," the mother said sadly, kissing them. "The new mother will be home presently. Oh, my poor children." And then, weeping bitterly, the mother took the baby in her arms and turned to leave the house. "But, Mother, we will be good at 11:30. Come back at 11:30, they cried, "and we'll both be good. We must be naughty till 11 o'clock. But the mother only picked up the little bundle in which she had tied up her cotton apron and went slowly out at the door. Just by the corner of the field she stopped and turned, and waved her handkerchief, all wet with tears, to the children at the window. She made the baby kiss its hand, and in a moment mother and baby had vanished from their sight. Then the children felt their hearts ache with sorrow, and they cried bitterly. Brief insert here. We're going to finish maybe a few minutes after the top of the hour, but not too far past, so stick with me. Then the children felt their hearts ache with sorrow, and they cried bitterly, and yet they could not believe that she had gone. And the broken clock struck 11, and suddenly there was a sound, a quick, clanging, jangling sound with a strange, discordant note at intervals. They rushed to the open window, and there saw the village girl dancing along and playing as she did so. "We have done all you told us," the children called. "Come and see, and now show us the little man and woman." The girl did not cease her playing or her dancing, but she called out in a voice that was half speaking and half singing, "You did it all badly. You threw the water on the wrong side of the fire. The tin things were not quite in the middle of the room. The clock was not broken enough. You did not stand the baby on its head." She was already passing the cottage. She did not stop singing, and all she said sounded like part of a terrible song. "I am going to my own land," the girl sang, "to the land where I was born." "But our mother is gone," the children cried. "Our dear mother. Will she ever come back?" "No," sang the girl, "she'll never come back. She took a boat upon the river. She is sailing to the sea. She will meet your father once again, and they will go sailing on." Then the girl, her voice getting fainter and fainter in the distance, called out once more to them, "Your new mother is coming. She is already on her way, but she only walks slowly, for her tail is rather long, and her spectacles are left behind. But she is coming, coming, coming." The last word died away. It was the last one they ever heard the village girl utter. On she went, dancing on. Then the children turned and looked at each other and at the little cottage home that only a week before had been so bright and happy, so cozy and spotless. The fire was out, the clock all broken and spoilt, and there was the baby's high chair with no baby to sit in it. There was the cupboard on the wall and never a sweet loaf on its shelf. And there were the broken mugs and the bits of bread tossed about and the greasy boards which the mother had knelt down to scrub until they were white as snow. In the midst of all stood the children, looking at the wreck they had made, their eyes blinded with tears and their poor little hands clasped in misery. "I don't know what we shall do if the new mother comes," cried Blue Eyes. "I shall never, never like any other mother." The turkey stopped crying for a minute to think what should be done. "We will bolt the door and shut the window, and we won't take any notice when she knocks." All through the afternoon they sat, watching and listening for fear of the new mother, but they saw and heard nothing. And gradually they became less and less afraid lest she should come. They fetched a pail of water and washed the floor. They found some rag and rubbed the tins. They picked up the broken mugs and made the room as neat as they could. There was no sweet loaf to put on the table, but perhaps the mother would bring something from the village, they thought. At last all was ready, and Blue Eyes and the turkey washed their faces and their hands and then sat and waited, for of course they did not believe what the village girl had said about their mother sailing away. Suddenly, while they were sitting by the fire, they heard a sound as of something heavy being dragged along the ground outside, and then there was a loud and terrible knocking at the door. The children felt their hearts stand still. They knew it could not be their own mother, for she would have turned the handle and tried to come in without any knocking at all. Again there came a loud and terrible knocking. "She'll break the door down if she knocks so hard," cried Blue Eyes. "Go and put your back to it," whispered the turkey, "and I'll peep out the window and try to see if it's really the new mother." So, in fear and trembling, Blue Eyes put her back against the door, and the turkey went to the window. She could just see a black satin poke bonnet with a frill round the edge, and a long, bony arm carrying a black leather bag. From beneath the bonnet there flashed a strange, bright light, and Turkey's heart sank, and her cheeks turned pale, for she knew it was the flashing of two glass eyes. She crept up to Blue Eyes. "It is! It is! It is!" she whispered, her voice shaking with fear. "It is the new mother!" Together they stood, with their two little backs against the door. There was a long pause. They thought perhaps the new mother had made up her mind that there was no one at home to let her in and would go away. But presently the two children heard through the thin wooden door the new mother moved a little and then say to herself, "I must break the door open with my tail." For one terrible moment all was still, but in it the children could almost hear her lift up her tail. And then with a fearful blow the little painted door cracked and splintered. With a shriek the children darted from the spot and fled through the cottage and out at the back door and into the forest beyond. All night long they stayed in the darkness and the cold, and all the next day and the next, and all through the cold, dreary days and the long, dark nights that followed. They are there still, my children. All through the long weeks and months they have been there, with only green rushes for their pillows, and only the brown dead leaves to cover them, feeding on the wild strawberries in the summer, or on the nuts when they hang green, on the blackberries when they are no longer sour in the autumn, and in the winter on the little red berries that ripen in the snow. They wander about among the tall dark firs or beneath the great trees beyond. Sometimes they stay to rest beside the little pool near the copse, and they long and long, with a longing that is greater than words can say, to see their own dear mother again, just once again, to tell her that they'll be good forevermore, just once again. And still the new mother stays in the little cottage, but the windows are closed and the doors are shut, and no one knows what the inside looks like. Now and then, when the darkness has fallen and the night is still, hand in hand, Blue Eyes and the turkey creep up near the home in which they were once so happy, and with beating hearts they watch and listen. Sometimes a blinding flash comes through the window, and they know it is the light from the new mother's glass eyes. Or they hear a strange muffled noise, and they know it is the sound of her wooden tail as she drags it along the floor. And there is the end of that story. And a strange story it is, and so is the Snow Queen. So, we have had our bit of midwinter madness. I am going to hang it up since it's already 5 minutes after 8. Lovely to see you all. I see including new folks that I hadn't had a chance to say hello to before, like Reem Cracknell. Hello, Reem. And Lena Taylor. And thank you for joining us. Pleasure to have you. I will be back, barring, as I said, fire, flood, anything like that. I will be back next week. Same times as usual, 1 a.m. Pacific time and 7 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. Until then, take good care of your very own selves. Take good care of your friends and loved ones. Keep an eye out for those who might need a helping hand or just a kind word. And I will be back with you very soon, and I deeply appreciate you spending some time with me now, especially while we got to finish such strange stories, both of which need to be talked about. So maybe we'll leave a little time next week. And I'd love to hear what any of you think about either of them, either the Snow Queen or the New Mother. Until then, thank you so much. A pleasure as always. Peace. Be good. See you soon.